Yeah. Flaxian, thank you for the 9-month resub. All right, let's check it out. Blah, blah, blah. Updates may contain many experimental changes we try and test. Yeah. Hellland Hellbat. Blue Flame, reduced cost. As a time gate to the Hellion Hellbat's mid-game combat power rather than a core upgrade for matchup defining openers. What? Why? Okay, I don't really get this one. I didn't think there was anything wrong with the current iteration of Blue Flame. It's like they watched Special try and do Blue Flame openers again and they didn't work and they were like, wow, Blue Flame sucks, we must change that. Like, no, you don't have to change that. Hey, no one's minion. Yeah, I haven't watched any GSL. Why even bother? Smeg player, I like this change. I mean, it's obviously a buff, but... Thor, this is the big one. High impact payload damage decreased, but then the weapon cooldown was also decreased. So it's an overall DPS buff, is what people did math in their heads and stuff. What's their reasoning? The same as the anti-ground weapon. Improve the response and without hurting its fantasy. 10 overkill targets less frequently. That's good. Slightly more impactful than low overall kill potential. Yeah, I mean, this is a buff. The reason that it's controversial is that some people like Nate were saying that it's not a buff, which I still don't really get. The downside of this is... I mean, well, the first downside is that armor is going to be more impactful for Broodlords and Carriers and Tempests, I guess. Which is something that, like, one of the last things you're going to really ever see being upgraded. And then the other downside is that if there's any way to interrupt the Thor attacking you, so either you know, get something to block its range or something, then it won't have as many shots off, or as much damage off rather, because it needs more shots. But I just see that as a buff. And I think their reasoning is sound, that right now the Thor is kind of an awkward unit and they're trying to make it so that it's a little more intuitive. There we go. So gameplay style better. Yeah. Viking health increased again. This already happened, right? More resilient against area effects damage. That's always nice. Mm, 15 more health in the Viking is probably going to be okay. The Viking right now is very difficult to use. It can be powerful. Its range is always its best, feature, but using it without, getting it all clumped up together, or trying to abuse terrain and it's getting stormed on anyways, is currently a problem. So I understand the reason for that. Medevac, this is one of the weird ones. So it's got a fusion core upgrade now instead of Starport Tech Lab. And so that, with the also Liberator range going away from the Tech Lab, but there's like 3. So 3 or 4 upgrades now. Cloak, Banshee Speed, Raven Energy. That's 3, right? Anyway, so now it has its Ignite Afterburners on Fusion Core, and then it reduces its cooldown by 5 seconds, which is what it already does. So that also means that because the cooldown starts immediately, right? It not only has its cooldown by 5 seconds, but it also, well, how to explain? It's always so weird to explain it until you see it in action. But it's it is a surprisingly big buff. I'll just leave it as that. But no one gets it. Even though it actually makes the medevac considerably faster, a lot more boosts are used. No one ever gets it. It's just not useful. And them trying to change it so that they are going to get it is just never going to happen, I feel. So now it increases the base movement speed pretty considerable amount. What, 0.63? But not that it gets boosted, as well as what is boosted. I just don't think I still don't think anyone's going to get it. So right now I don't know what 4.13 will be. I am a little worried. I guess we can just go ahead and Google it. Marine StarCraft 2. So it's... Damn it, do you not have the speed here? Stimpack DPS, strong against speed. Oh, there it is. Alright, so its speed is 3.15. So now it's just going to be like much faster than Marine Marauder. So when it's stimmed, it's 4.6, so 4.7. It's gonna be able to catch up with the Sim Marines. I don't know. I'm worried that if I were to get this upgrade, that it'd be one of those like weird things, like kind of like, you know, when you get the observer speed against lurkers, you think like that's what I should get, but then you end up just sacrificing more observers because they run their face into the army more often. That's what I'm thinking about, and I'm a little worried about. But in late game, I guess that might not be so much of an issue, because this is only going to happen in late game. But I just don't see the reason I would get it anyways. Even besides that potential, like, oh crap, the Medivacs are ahead of me again. Like, I just don't see why I would bother getting it. By the time I'm getting fusion core upgrades, because there's not going to be any builds around getting Medivacs Ignite Afterburners, so I'm going to be getting fusion core in the late game with expensive units. I'm going to prioritize the Liberator upgrade, which has been moved to the fusion core. When I get Medivac speed, is there really going to be even that many boost opportunities? I don't know. What's Hellion speed? I don't know. You can look that up, because I don't... what are you worried it's going to be? What does a Medivac have to do with the Hellion? It improves mid or late game multi-pronged Medivac harassment. Unfortunately, it's just not what's going to improve the Medivac harassment, I feel. And greatly improve potential game-ending doom drops. Yeah, that's always a concern. You don't want to buff the mid-game too much, because then you just buff like doom drops and TVT especially. The fusion core is a buff, since you don't have to have a tech lab on a starport. But I just don't see why I would want it. You know, like Kelazur got Ignite Afterburners once in a late game, and it did feel just like one of those like why not upgrades. And I think it's still going to be the same exact, like, I guess if I think about it, I'll get it, upgrades. I don't think anyone's really going to care. It could be wrong, but the you know, late game drops just stop being effective because there's too much creep spread scouting them, or because there's too much static defense defending against them. I don't ever like do a drop in like the later stages of a game and I'm like, well, if only my Medivacs were faster, then I would really be steamrolling this opponent. It would make Hellion drops a bit better. Hellion drops in the late game? I don't think that matters. You don't see Hellion drops that late in the game. Anyways, I think it's just useless. I think they need to do something else besides speed. It's also like one of those things where there are other things to buff and nerf StarCraft units with. And a lot of the time, it feels like Blizzard just goes with speed. So attack speed and movement speed. And it's like, oh, that's kind of boring. Makeshift cliff drops better in late game. Well, it doesn't. You're not supposed to afterburn into the drop anyways. Ideally, you always afterburn to escape. But the point is, either you're escaping because it's not going to do any damage, or you're just not escaping at all. It feels like when you do drops in the late game, right? So having some faster Medivacs and then also boost, like I don't see it doing anything. No. I'm down with it. I don't see it doing anything. That's my opinion. Liberator, Advanced Ballistics upgrade moved from Starport Tech Lab to Fusion Core. Again, this is nice just because of that one, like, Tech Lab being on the Starport is kind of awkward. But then they also reduce the range of it, which I don't really mind. Promote more unit interaction in the late game. Viewed as a package with the changes in Neural Parasite and the Tempest. I think that's fine, but we'll get to the Neural Parasite and Tempest stuff changes anyways. So Thor's DPS and high impact mode, yes, it's actually increased. Raven, energy cost increased, probably good. Duration increased. Okay. Slightly too powerful in early game TVT. Low level of diversity in this matchup's openers. Sure. I actually don't know if that's really a big deal. I personally have never really been frustrated with Ravens being a key component of TVT. I think we still see enough openers before at Starport. We still see double proxy racks. We still see even like Marauder proxy occasionally coming out. We still see factory expands and, you know, one rack expands. We still see proxy Starports occasionally. I never really was bothered by the Raven leading the charge in TVT. It didn't feel like it was the only thing, and it still had. It was a fun dynamic. I felt very tense mid game, but I can see, like, you know, especially with the Koreans going like triple Ravens and some of the matchups, some of the games literally being decided because one person interference makes the other Raven. I can see why they would want to get away from it. But I don't know if I would, like, I don't mind the energy increase cost. But I don't know if I want the duration increased, but I have no strong opinions on that, I suppose. Raven movement speed increased. Okay, this is interesting because the Raven has always had this problem where it's both too fast and too slow. It's hard to make sure that it keeps with your army so it doesn't die to blink stalkers, or, you know, even lag behind because you have a different hotkey and you forget to press that hotkey. A super 1% leads that someone will explode a bucket of poo. I mean, they adjust based off of professional play. Anything else is stupid. Let's place more of the Raven's power into the unit's body. With a necessary counterbalance. Okay, so I guess in general I like this, but actually what I would want them to change is not the speed increase. I'd rather them change the acceleration increase. And what's the word? Turn point or something like that? When the Raven accelerates, it's quite slow. And then when the Raven casts a spell, it also takes a surprising amount of time. It doesn't feel as instant as some other spellcasters when it shoots down its auto turret, because auto turret only has like one range, or even when it shoots a defense matrix, it feels a little awkward. I'd rather them change that and make the unit feel more fluid than just, again, like a basic movement speed. Rate of turn rate. That's the same thing, isn't it? Thank you, Chizex, for the 2-month resub. Town hall is a general term. I think I've heard that, yeah. We'll see what happens with the Raven, but I would rather the Raven be made to feel more intuitive if it's going to get any buff. As far as changing the interference matrix, I understand why it's happening. Tacticals don't know stuns. Battlecruiser until 1 second loadability phase before it teleports. We'll be able to cancel tactical jump. Okay. So you could already, like, obviously they stopped it from tactical jumping until the spell was over, but now it can actually cancel tactical jump. and put it on cooldown if the battle... Okay. An alternate potential change. Okay, so these are two different choices. Is to increase its cooldown. Some combination, but perhaps not both. I don't know if this would actually be, because their reasoning for changing it is because of the early game harassment. Well, maybe not. It's a bit too easy for them to escape unfavorable situations. Their fleets. Okay, so it's not really so much about the early game. I still don't know, like, I don't know. In both the early game, mid game, and late game, I do wonder how much of a 15-second difference is going to really matter. Hello. I don't actually think I like any of these changes. I'm not saying that Battlecruiser doesn't need to be changed. I think it's been mostly figured out, but maybe not enough. Maybe there are still too many games in the professional scene where, like, because enough Battlecruisers live, they suddenly get to that, you know, tipping point where there's just too many Battlecruisers. But I don't think I like any of these options. I feel like an option that would help early, mid, and late game would just be to make it so that they can't teleport wherever. That you have to at least scan before you teleport. That not only costs money, in a sense, right? The mule to do it, then it also would give a, like, even 1 second alert to the Zerg player or whoever. You know, Terrans, you know, whenever we scan each other, we're already kind of like, okay, you're scanning me because you're about to attack me. So if they could do that for battlecruisers as well, I feel like it would actually be decent. Mass speed's inviolable anyway, because you can only tech to it if the opponent's already losing. I don't think that's true. When we see a decent number of battlecruisers that can eventually snowball into mass battlecruisers, it's off like these battlecruiser openers where they get to, like, they go 1 battlecruiser, 2 battlecruiser, maybe pause because there's other things that are happening, and they just consistently go into 1 battlecruiser at a time. And, you know, either they survive a big roach corruptor push, or there never happens to be a corruptor roach push, and then suddenly they're at 5 or 6 battlecruisers because they also don't die. And then because they have that many, they just keep on adding on. I feel like that's why we see mass battlecruisers work. Obviously, the diamond level start with battlecruiser, don't make many other units at all, hope that battlecruisers work, doesn't actually work. Was Terran needing a nerf? Nah. Well, like, I'd like to see these end-year patches be more of an attempt to just change things around than really looking at it as a nerf buff thing, I guess. Even though, like, for instance, infestors definitely needed a nerf, and we're going to get to that. I think it should be more about they just want to change the way that the game works. They want to get rid of stale metas and stuff like that. When does the update go live? Well, it's not an update. It's proposed changes. So again, this is what it started off with, guys. Like, it's almost pointless to go over this in detail and really freak out about it because they're guaranteed going to change it even without much prompting from the community. So you can play this on the testing ladder, and no one does, so... Okay. New model can will no longer cancel itself if a target enters a transport or becomes cloaked. This just seems like too many nerfs. I don't know what... I'm thinking they got rid of this because Zerg players felt it was bullshit that they kept on losing infestors. I'd be more interested in counterplay options against Yamato rather than just making it miss and go on cooldown. Yeah. Mule duration decreased is just almost like a patch. I mean, it is a buff, actually. Now always attempt to spawn on the side of the most closest to Town Hall. That's nice. Just quality of life improvements with the mule. Suddenly Terran's gonna be winning all these late game. And we're gonna be like, why? It's because the mule didn't lose minerals! That is a counterplay option. To have it miss. Because you burrow? I don't think that's enough of a counterplay. I don't think that's enough of a cool, like, oh my god, he barely did it in time. Because infestors are already, you know, habit and it's ingrained in the Zerg players to unburrow, do the thing, and then burrow again. You can't rush me. I'd rather see other. In addition, we'd like to introduce some counterplay options. So they didn't even consider this a counterplay. All right, on to the Infestor in Zerg. This is the biggest one, I guess. Terran energy cost increased, doubled. Terran health increased 25. Swarm mega health increased. I don't think you should do that at all. Get rid of that one, for sure. Infested Terran's Gauss rifle damage increased. Whoa, by double. Infested rockets damage increased by almost double. Now again, +2 per range weapon upgrade. Ooh. So not only did they bring back infested Terran upgrades, which were taken away because they were so overpowered, they're now doubling its effectiveness. And then its attack period is decreased by 0.19. Is that right? What? This is almost nothing but buffs. Let's say burrow a queen. If you're talking about early game harassment, Zergs won't have burrow by that point. So again, I don't think it's counterplay. So infested Terrans attack twice or just once. It's one. I think it's exactly like a Terran. Even infested rockets are still like a Marine, so just once. This is really weird. I thought there would be at least one more nerf, but this is actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 buffs and 1 nerf. No, this is a nerf, sorry. Okay, so there are 2 nerfs. So 5 buffs and 2 nerfs. Infested Terran energy, now they can't spam infested Terrans as much. But the problem with infestors is not because there's like 4 infestors and they're spamming Terrans, it's because there's inevitably like 15 infestors. And I think that's still going to be enough infested Terrans. And these other buffs are actually just really, really buffs. They're not like... These are not tiny. You could maybe say this is tiny. This is obviously literally only 5. But these are huge. Why would they do this? Why would they do this? I guess as Chicken Man's pointing out, I guess like when you put it to a very basic sentence, I guess half infested Terrans but double the damage, double the upgrades. But I don't think that's not actually what's gonna happen. Oh, you're right. Shit. Damn it. I almost got bamboozled earlier. Attack period decreased from, that's right. So it is only 1 nerf. When I see decrease, I think nerf and blah, blah, blah. No, this is a buff to his attack speed. Oh my god. Well, that's silly. Fallen goal in mind. Vegetarians feel like more of a commitment. Expensive and powerful, it is still vulnerable. They'll be more vulnerable? Wait, how are they did I miss something? How are they more vulnerable? Did they... Is this a... What? Am I missing something? Because there are less than them? Okay. Oh, okay. I guess that's where they're going with it. So Psionic Storm and Disruptors would kill all infested Terrans because there's not as many of them. And Liberators would do it faster too. I guess. Okay. Yeah. But their HP got higher. I mean, I don't know how many storms it takes to kill 75 health, to be fair, but compared to 50. But yeah, in the end, you are wasting energy to kill free units, and even with Liberators, you're kind of wasting their shots. Liberators don't exactly attack slow, but they are a single attack, obviously, so you're like wasting shots on what could be Banelings, Ultras, whatever. Storm does 80. Okay, so they're still killed if they just sit in the storm. Okay. Hey, Borsty. No parasite range decreased. That's good. That'll help with like Thor late game stuff, is what I'm thinking about. But now infestors come with neural parasite by default, and that's weird. They often result in few minutes of interaction on the part. For feedback, the Terran Backers will be so often we say the best and most stable opener. Well, statements like this right here, I feel like don't make much sense. So hold on. On the Terran side, we've heard feedback that battlecruiser openers are used so often because they are the best and most stable opener that can be used to transition into mech. This feedback is a bit concerning since we like that battlecruiser openings are viable, but we nonetheless feel they might be crowding out other cool Terran openers. See, this type of statement doesn't make any sense because in their minds, there are dozen other openers that are also as good. It's just that battlecruiser openers are just a tad bit better. When I think when Terrans complain like this is probably taken from those like strategy sessions with the players. I feel like what the Terran players are saying is that it's the only thing. Like they might be misusing the word best, but I think what they actually mean is that it's one of the only things. And so that combined with the fact that battlecruisers got nerfed and then they're buffing not just a specific unit response, but a unit that in general has been a problem in its reaction to battlecruisers. I feel like it's just way overkill. It's going to completely do away with battlecruiser openers, and infestors are definitely getting buffed. This is what this makes me feel like. Yeah, I wonder what other cool Terran openers they're thinking of that goes into mech. When did they collect that feedback? Maybe like 2 months ago, I think, because it wasn't at Montreal. It was before that. Will this affect the Immortal All-In? The Immortal All-In, I feel like, has already been a little figured out too, though. So, but besides that, I don't think so. You don't get infestors to it. Feedback is out of date. I mean, yeah, there's always that concern, but in fairness to responding to battlecruisers were both super overpowered before their nerfs. Remember, we had a patch directly nerfing the battlecruiser, but were also brought back into play, and maybe not in an overpowered sense, but in a way that Zergs complained against. So this isn't just like a one-time thing that, got settled out. Like, this has been going on for many months of the year. I count openers affected by a late game unit. Well, they're I mean, I guess that is the other issue of this whole paragraph is that, well, no, I think what they're saying is, right, okay, well, let's just continue reading. Because they're not talking about, like, you get an infestor when the first fucking battlecruiser appears. They're talking about when the battlecruiser lives, goes back, 2 battlecruisers live, 3 battlecruisers, 4 battlecruisers, and then you try and do a push, but because battlecruisers are still so good at surviving that they still end up holding. And we saw a lot of that, right? We saw a lot of Roach Corruptor pushes where it looks like the Terran player is going to die, but then they just repaired the battlecruisers and came back. BC openers had such a bad win rate in pro games recently, though. Yeah, that is the interesting thing. Didn't someone actually collect data on like openers at Montreal? Some nerd, was it you? Went in and like looked at the win rates of certain openers and stuff, and what they found was like, first of all, infestors actually, if they're used in the late game, had less of a win rate. They actually had a loss, more losses than wins, and that the battlecruiser opener wasn't as effective as people said. Anyways, theoretically provides Zerg a more direct option to be aggressive against battlecruiser openings. So, you know, again, the first battlecruiser, second battlecruiser, third battlecruiser, you probably won't have infestors, but around that like 4 number, you'll probably have your 4 or 5 bases up, have chosen to go into infestors, and can actually kill the battlecruisers as opposed to letting them fly away. Everything looks better when people are being defeated by it. True that. So anyways, overall, do not like the new Infestor. I don't like what they did to the battlecruiser, and I'm not Nate. I don't have severe bias to battlecruisers. I don't think I like it, though. Infestors just feel like an overall buff, for sure, even with the energy cost and the range decrease. Lurker, let's see this. Build time decreased. I'm on board with that. It's a pretty substantial decrease, though. 29 seconds. But that does put it more in line, I think, with the other tech structures. The Lurker Den takes a long time to finish. See ya, Torch. No, but they're decreasing the range. Is that really necessary? New upgrade? Oh, okay. Okay, so this is actually this is throwback to 2016. They initially had an upgrade for range, and then I forget the exact reasons, but they weren't being used. Or the upgrade wasn't being gotten to. Like people would die before the upgrade was effective or whatever. So they just gave them more an extra range. So now we're going back to it where you have to get an upgrade, 8 to 10. Hive tech. So you're going to get 2 upgrades off the Lurker Den then. Yeah, because its adaptive talent still exists. Okay. And 3-second boost to that. Yeah, I know, Borthy. A strong dynamic counter against Immortal Templar-based armies. That isn't Broodlords. I do agree with this. I don't think ZVP has actually, like, many times been in a fantastic position, but there were some really cool games with Lurker dynamics that made it more interesting. I would appreciate seeing the mid-game come back and Lurkers be strong, as opposed to what we have now, which feels very boring. Smooth out their transition. I think that will help a ton. And then stop any Lurker-based timings from being powerful. I like their idea. I like their mindset here. And a late game upgrade. I'm actually a little concerned that 10 range plus, because we're figuring if we're at high, if we're going to be able to afford a couple things. I'm a little concerned that 10 range plus Lurker speed would be too good. If we believe that a more mid-game focused PvZ would mean less fast transitions into like Tempest and Carriers, that is. If that's not the case, because they're saying late game upgrade geared towards fighting ground armies. Yeah. If the case is that we're still on a ground army and trading out with that, ground army to ground army, I would be a little concerned about having both burrow speed and 10 range. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen there. Broodlord leash range. Its current leash range allows it to attack with 13 range. That's nice. This is almost like a quality of life thing. It should probably have been this way. Ooh, God. Oh, my God. That's a lot of... Ooh, okay, Nidus Night work. All right. Unload delay. Okay, unload delay. So that means when it goes rawr, and then it shoots out units, it's slower now. Okay. Oh, don't get me wrong. I know that Broodlord thing is a big deal. It just always felt that Broodlords, in the hands someone was really good with them, was a little too over microable. So this might be too big of a fix of a nerf, but I do like that they're addressing it. But it's locked behind an upgrade. Secreted coding. There you go. Load period increased. Unload period increased. So everything's slower. And then they put all those behind an upgrade. Summon Nidus mobility cooldown increased from 0, which was absurd, to 14, which is pretty long. Okay. I mean, they're changing it to more of a... They're really hampering... Well, maybe not so much. No, I have to think about this a little more. It's a hive upgrade, yeah. Well, it's obviously loop. It's secreted coding. It's able to queue up Nidus worms. It's bad. Especially bad for Protoss. They got a cooldown. I mean, definitely agree with the cooldown. I don't know about 14 seconds. Maybe it'll be like back down to 10 or something, but... Hello, Apollo. What do you do with the players that go for multiple Nidus networks already late game? Well, I see this probably being okay. Because obviously their goal here is they want the all-ins to be possible. If you don't scout a super early all-in, then it's still on you. You could still die to it just because the first wave of attack is too devastating. Thank you, Mike29, for the Twitch Prime sub. Which I think is still possible. I think we'll see the all-ins decrease. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's still possible to have some Nidus from all-ins. Oh, thanks for the words too. And then they want it to still be something that feels cool, probably is the word they would use, that you could put Nidus worms, right, in every direction in the late game. So both to attack and to defend, which has always been like something they kind of wanted to be a Nidus canal, but have never ever been able to really do that because it's just like Zerg doesn't work the same way as it did in Brood War. And Werewolf, thank you very much for that Twitch Prime sub. Random upgrades to miss when we're gas using the attack buildings. Yeah, that does seem to be a trend for sure. Takes an like 17 seconds to build. Right, to build, yeah. Subtrain 2 wagons. It's like, it's not quite doing the choo-choo. It's actually making the creaky noise, you know, of like a red wheelbarrow. Wagon, that is. Hair. I do wonder. I'm trying to think through all the scenarios here. I do still wonder, because so the weird thing is that I think the Nidus Swarm as it is right now is actually still underutilized. I am on that train. It's now departed. I actually, like, you know, obviously it was the thing to do at any stage of the game back in the beginning of the year. Then it kind of, got nerfed a tiny bit, and now it was killable and all that. But I still thought that it wasn't being used as much as it should have been. Like, I think, given time, eventually double Nidus Swarm at, 12 minutes or something would have been the standard. And then given even more time, I think that double Nidus Swarm earlier and then a third and a fourth one or something would have been pretty good as well, because at the end of the day it's still pretty cheap, especially if you get into the late game. You can afford both the Nidus Swarm and all the Nidus heads. So I was worried the Nidus Swarm would be pretty good, so I'm glad they're changing it. I'm just wondering if it actually is going to be enough of a change. I think it'll push that whole, like, we're just going to make Nidus Swarms everywhere all the time a little farther into the future, but I still think it might happen. Because right now, mobility still feels like it's on Zerg's side, even as they get into late game Broodlord armies. Just because creep, does as much scouting as it does. Might see more lurkers coming through Niduses now. Yeah, that's true. Those hand-powered trend carts. Yeah. What do you think about dropping Niduses only on creep? I feel like, that has been suggested before, right? Initially I was going to say I wouldn't mind it because I'm thinking about Overlord speed being so common now that even after the Viking does its job or whatever, like, they still send out Overlords. But ultimately, I don't think that's quite fair. I don't know. For Terran hoping to completing the campaign. Well, patches never affect the campaign, so... Yeah, I think the Knights would be too weak. Well, you would never do early all-ins, which I don't think they don't want to get rid of. They don't want to get rid of the option of all-inning with a Nidus Swarm, which I agree with. I think that it should be an option. And unfortunately, if you require a creep spread, then all it takes is that Viking opener, from a Terran's perspective, obviously, to shoo away the Overlord. Because it wouldn't be so instant as, like, as soon as the Overlord poops creep even a little bit, the Nidus Swarm could be placed. You'd have to wait for it to be the size of a Nidus Swarm, which isn't that long, but I think when we're talking about all-in seconds, I think that is long. Blizzard's not been able to balance this game during 9 years. Hold on there, Edge Master. You're sliding down that edge. Let's just calm the fuck down. Blizzard has had its moments of terribleness. Broodlord Infestor. But the balance of our game is actually really impressive, so calm down. I don't know what to think about the Nidus Swarm in general, I guess. There's just so many things, especially because I am still of the opinion that it's being underutilized. I'm just like, I'm reading these and I'm like, well, clearly this is going to push off any, abusive Nidus Swarms till later. But I still feel like even later, even as we get to 13, 14-minute games, which happen just a decent amount with the bigger maps and people getting better at the game and stuff and blah, 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 I'm still worried that eventually we get to minute 14, people get on a bunch of Nidus Swarms, get the upgrades, and it still puts them not just with a map hack of creep spread, but also with the potential to harass everywhere. But I don't know. Yeah, the BlizzCon patches are almost always to shake up the meta and not just address balance. I'm worried about the Viking health buff. I don't think you have to actually be worried about Vikings that much. Summon Native Swarm, okay. Cooldown, the ability equals the build time. Which is fair. On to the Protoss. Oracle Sentry Void Ray fixed the beam attack. Which was temporarily fixed, and then people were like, holy shit, this is too big of a deal. And yeah, so now they're actually just gonna go ahead and fix that. The only thing this really affects heavily is gonna be the Oracle, although Void Rhino gets a buff. Yeah, the Oracle is not going to be nearly as good at helping defend early thirds. Charge upgrade no longer provides Zealot with 8 damage. Nice. And so they have to get an upgrade where then they deal 8 damage to enemies. So first they have to get charge, and then they get Sundering Impact. I was going to say they're going to have to require charge. You don't accidentally get this first. That's odd. Because charge is an automated spell, this is like, I feel like this is a very unique upgrade, right? Because it's not like Pathogen Glands where if you don't get it before Neural Parasites, you know, it's stupid. Like this is, what is an equivalent upgrade combo in this game like this now? Where you have to get an upgrade to unlock another upgrade that only affects the previous upgrade. What the bug used to be. So I don't know exactly. There's been videos about it though, but basically you could glide the Oracle to make it do damage. So it just did more damage in general. Someone in chat will explain it with more detail, but I don't think there is one. Yeah, I think this is the first time, and this is like this thing that I think people don't realize about Blizzard, or at least StarCraft 2, I don't know about the other games, but is that they not only look at like buffs and nerfs and speed boosts and attack timing stuff, and they don't really look at that stuff. There's also like a directive in their, not even their head, but like that they literally are told, and that they try and keep to, where you have to keep the game, how to say, like, I don't even know how to say this. You have to keep the game the same. That's not the same. That's not the one I'm trying to get at. You don't want to change too many rules. There we go. Like, there are rules to this game that we just follow that could be changed, but you don't want to. So when people, like, bring up some, like, random, totally out there patch idea, sometimes my first answer to it is that it's not a rule that exists right now, or it would break a rule that exists right now, so they're never going to do it. And I can't even think of an example right now, so I know I'm being pretty useless. Thank you, Roddy, for that host. We're just talking about the patch right now, as everyone else has done. Need research +1 for +2. Close thing to Tunneling Claws? Kind of. But again, I think it's even more unique because charge is, as I said, an automated upgrade attack thingy. Like, you can click on it to not make it automated, but most, no one does that. We can just go ahead and give up on the idea of new units ever happening, so just give up on that idea. Like, okay, that's a good example. Like, no hero units, but it's kind of a bad example because there's a mothership. More like when people, and this is a really absurd one, but still, it's the best thing I can think of. Like, when people are like, you can stack units on top of each other. That would be such an interesting thing to add to the game. Imagine if battle cruisers could have a tank on top. And it's like, first of all, that's absurd, and obviously it's an absurd suggestion. But second of all, even if we looked at Warcraft and we're like, wow, it's really cool that hippogriffs can get an archer on it. I wish we had something like that in StarCraft. I guarantee that would be breaking a rule in StarCraft. So there's just nothing that exists like it and never will be, and they're never ever going to add something like it. So they don't ever be units. Yeah, just give up on the idea of units entirely, guys. Don't even worry about it. Okay, so anyways, that whole blurb aside, I just was talking about this charge upgrade, guys, because it's so weird that we now have an upgrade for an upgrade. Yeah. That also is like, and that's the interesting about the tunneling claws burrow thing, is that tunneling claws isn't automated. You have to press the button and do something with them. It also doesn't require you to get burrow first. This requires you to have charge research first. Like, it's very unique. So I'm a little surprised with how this is going. But this is their solution, apparently. So you have to get charge first, and charge just makes them, you know, speedy boys. And then you get this, and it's +8 damage. Tankovax. Yeah, but that would be if Tankovax could shoot while being carried. And they obviously couldn't. Spiral Pet gain from researching charge would be a bit too high for its cost. Smooth the power curve. More difficult time defending early third base against Terran. Well, I'm trying very hard, especially since Roddy just hosted, and I'm sure there's a lot of Protoss fans here. I'm trying very hard not to let my Terran bias affect these comments right now, but I feel like this is too much. Okay? And before all the Terrans are like, you betrayed us. I feel like this is too much. To have a totally additional upgrade. I would have preferred just a damage change on impacts. I didn't really want to get rid of the impact damage entirely, especially with the last time we talked about charge. Was the last patch. But I didn't want to get rid of it entirely because I was afraid of what it would do to the game, because it would be a dramatic, change. But this is the post-Blitz compact. It's supposed to be dramatic. But is this actually the right way to go about it? We now have Zealots just with charge, back to their roots, I suppose, for those early game pushes. And then making them go into that Twilight Council tech, which, to be fair, right now as things go, it'd be Blink, Charge, Sundering, Impact almost immediately after, and both Charge and Impact would be 100. So it's not like it's that expensive. The Warcraft days, think about Archons. Nah, that's not the same. That's not the same, especially because you could take the Archer off the Hippogriff. And, yeah. That's basically why it's not the same. Isn't this the middle ground somewhat? Yeah, but the other middle ground, there's like two middle grounds. The other middle ground would have been just making it +4 damage on impact or something. No, you could separate them again. I'm pretty sure you can. Actually, I say that, but I haven't played Warcraft in years. Upgrade for upgrade does seem... It's just weird. Infested Terran just a massive buff. Yes, I did. Math has been done. It's a nerf. I don't maybe because I haven't seen the math, I could be convinced that it's a nerf. But I feel like there's a difference between direct damage, right? Like the amount of Terrans that comes out with the damage they now have, and the actual execution of it in the game. You know what I mean? Because there's so many other things about the infested Terran than it just shooting a lot. Co-op design, where they also have upgrades for upgrades? Probably. Well, definitely going to change up the TVP, PVT openers inside of Protoss. You know, tanks, not tank pushes. I mean, tank pushes might come back, I guess. They're still around, but there's been a lot of, like, pure bio openers coming back. But, like, that 3-gas style with blink charge might not be able to get such a fast third anymore. Thank you, Jiv Perry. Splash damage just kills infested Terrans now. Right, that's the weird thing they brought up. I was like, well, they always did. But you mean because there's less of them, then there's not like 2 or 3 infested Terrans that didn't get hit. No FF. Friendly fire? Oh, friendly fire. I wish. Definitely wasn't a change. I still don't... we're going to see how the infested Terrans work, but I still don't like the idea of them. It dips. Health increased, shields decreased. Amplified shielding. Increased shields. Pretty long upgrade. Due to its historical potential when paired to Phoenix. Also, its historical potential to be super OP broken. Talking about beginning a Legacy of the Void. To counter depths in the form of EMP, from a combo we can safely scale this unit better into the mid to late game. I don't think it's going to happen. As more comparable options for a core mid-game unit. I'm interested in what's going to happen with this. I don't feel any particular excitement for it, though. The Adept was always this kind of weird thing where, like, they introduced this new gateway unit to try and make gateway styles viable. Which, hey, like, to the Void, tons of gateway styles now. But it always was kind of like, well, like, also just what about charge lots and stalkers? So I get where they're going with this. I'm just not sure it's actually that... I don't think it's that cool. I don't know if that's that useful. Would I ever really want to spam Adepts? Because let's not forget that there are many ways that the Adept and the Zealot are different, but one of the biggest ways that the Adept costs gas. Not a lot of gas, but it does cost gas. And when you're in a mid to late game, even in a mid game as a Protoss player, you're on a lot of gas, I guess, unless you're doing that 3-gas style. But do I really want to be warping in Adepts instead of Zealots? I don't know about that. And then I think what also can sometimes be undervalued is the complications of an engagement, right? We can talk about math all we want. We can say that this unit beats this unit, but, you know, if it means that it only beats them when no one's microing, then it's not really worthwhile talking about. And I feel like Zealots complicate things. Zealots don't just force you to micro back because, oh, I don't want to be attacked by them again. They force you to micro back because you also don't want to be surrounded by them, which clumps up your army, gets hit by more splash damage that Protoss inevitably has, and also makes you take damage from the Zealots. So I don't think Adepts would ever be a core mid-game or late-game unit in any matchup, aside from like a couple of odd metas. Like, remember back when there was like nothing but Adepts versus Adepts in Protoss? First Protoss? That was weird. Yeah. Thank you, Rainbow Pasta. Rainbow Pasta. I nailed it. For that tier 1 sub. Twitch alerts go off? I feel like I didn't hear anything. Oh, you know what? I didn't hear anything.
New subscription received. Class 2 access granted. Enjoy your stay.
Hey, what's the deal? None of these alerts are making any noise. Oh no, they are. They are for you guys again. Okay, good. Thank you, Jeremy the Lee, for the Twitch Prime sub. Appreciate all the great StarCraft content you produce. Thank you. Maybe I was just gonna EMP those extra 20 shields. Yeah. Adepts just won a game. I'd have to watch the game, but are you telling me that Adepts won a game when they were like part of a mid to late game army? Because if this is just going to make mass Adepts with a single sentry for Guardian Shield a powerful army, well then that's just boring. I'm thinking more along the lines of like, because they say together is more comparable options for a core mid game unit, I'm thinking more like, you know, couple sentries, half like a dozen stalkers, and then Adepts as you try and also get to High Templars. Right. Hey, Maynard. Whoa, you're up late. Woo. Mass Adept versus 3-base hatch drone. Oh, that's not the same. That's not at all what we're talking about here, Nepofear. That obviously is already a thing. We're talking about changes. Not Adept all-ins, not the occasional weird, like, yeah, 20 Adepts attack versus Zerg. If they're trying to bring things so that we get a choice between Zealots and Adepts, I think they're going to be disappointed. 1 a.m. Well, you're the type of person that wakes up super early, so it is kind of weird. Although I guess for you, it's the weekend. Anyways, I still don't, I don't think Adept interactions are also that interesting. So I'm just like biased against Adepts. This probably comes from playing Legacy of the Void back in 2016. So moving on. Observer. Movement speed decreased. Booster upgrade now increases by... So they're just slowing down the Observer entirely. I like this actually. I don't think it was the biggest deal. But one, this might actually, I brought this up earlier, this might actually help against the whole lurker thing, because lurkers are going to make a comeback where, very, you know, in a frustrating way, the gravitic boosters would make it so that they just run to the lurkers and hydras and overseers and die. But the base movement speed decreasing as much as it does, that actually might just be a straight up annoyance for Protoss. And I only am the tiniest little bit of sympathy. It's like the tiniest little violin right there. So I'm liking it. I like it. Void Ray. Now it's Flux Veins again, which increases movement speed and acceleration. Prismatic alignment will still reduce speed. It's only 100, and it's pretty fast. There's some undesirable game states. I didn't say that again. I don't think this will do anything. I don't see Void Rays really making a comeback. Their issue with being included in like late game Protoss armies was not because they were lagging behind, or alternatively because they were being left behind, although maybe you could argue a little bit with that. Maybe if they actually survive when you retreat, it'll be different. Maybe. It's a meme. It is a bit of a meme. The shield battery Void Ray cheese might be more annoying. That is true, because against Terran, which is where you use it, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really care about the prismatic alignment ability too much. If it pops its prismatic alignment against a Void Ray, against a Viking, the Viking just dies. If it doesn't, but it latches onto the Viking still dies. Although now the Viking has a health boost, so that might actually not be. This actually might balance out that one particular strategy, and it might be totally okay. Aren't they faster than Vikings? But the thing is that if it locks onto a Viking in that circumstance, because this happened to me a dozen times, the Viking 90% dies anyways as it tries to escape because it's only a little bit faster. Now it'll die faster, but it doesn't change how many shots it got off, so I don't know. It might be the only thing it affects, though, is that cheese. In which case, they'll probably just like fix it pretty soon if that suddenly just dominates the ladder in the pro games. Vikings used to be able to, but it doesn't matter, because that one cheese I think was also just been figured out because people like started to figure out how to scout it and deal with it, not just because the units interacted the way that they did. I don't think this will do very much, but maybe, as I said, maybe because they'll be able to retreat with the army now, maybe it'll actually be worth always including them, and then that difference of especially late game EVP is what I'm thinking of. The difference of having your army survive and not survive is actually one of the biggest differences, because Protoss armies are more expensive, right? So if suddenly this means like the 6 Voiders you made to overcharge against the Corruptors live, maybe it is really important. These are the Protoss ones where they get patched out. There'll be new ones. Anti-air increase from 15 to decrease, sorry. 15 to 14. I do think the dynamics of Tempests are not that fun sometimes, but not so much that I'd want to see more than this. Yeah. I think this is fine. There is something to be said about long-range units, and now they have to be super microed because they're... Well, okay, hold on here. Because their health was changed, but... -1 range, and then health increased by 50, shields decreased by 25, so 25 boost. And now they're they're a tiny bit less effective with shield batteries. There we go. Means Voids can kite Corruptors forever. I'm not really worried about that, because if we're talking about late game units, and hey, maybe it will be a mid game thing, more of like a just before late game. But if we're talking about late game scenarios where you're trying to deal with Mass Corruptor, Infestor, Infested Terran, Broodlord, Queen, Viper, blah 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 blah, them kiting units doesn't actually matter. Anyways, in combination with the Liberator change, which is -1 range. We'll change the relationship between Liberators and Tempests while allowing Stalkers and Vikings to interact more. I like that thought process. I'm okay with that. Tempest life stats compensate for range decrease and be more resilient against EMPs. Oh yeah, they'd be more effective against EMP. Time warp now affects air units. I guess I knew it didn't, but okay, that makes sense. I'm glad they made it also do that, because no one used the goddamn thing anyways. delay. Wait, what does this mean? Time warp delay reduces from 5 to 1 point. What does that mean? The time warp now decreases movement speed by that, or the dome animation? Oh, so it's more instant. Gotcha. Okay. Okay. I think that makes sense. I think that actually might make it more useful, but it's you know, it's a very miscellaneous spell. You have to be on a mothership in the first place, and then you have to remember to even use it, which most people don't. And that's it. Now we're done. All right. There are some things that I just don't understand. Hellion stuff, I don't get it. Medevac doesn't matter. And then Void Ray I don't think really matters. Those are the things that I don't really have any interest in. The big things, the biggest things, let's go with that. Because I think this is big, this doesn't matter. This is something, this is something, this is big. I think Battlecruisers being different, not just because of the Battlecruiser changes, but also because of the Infestor changes is huge. The Infestor change is going to be huge. The Lurker Den stuff could be huge. This is a seriously nice nerf for people facing Broodlords. Night Escort work is probably huge. Zealot's going to be huge. Adepts don't matter. I'm going to put that in no matter. Doesn't matter category. Observer, speed, meh. And Tempest is important, but not super huge. There we go. Does it slow down your disruptor shots? I thought it did. Not sure though. When they take motherships, their own parasite that is now automatically included in the investors. It might be. It's secretly a Zerg buff. Yeah. All the Infestors, the Battlecruiser Infestor stuff is going to be the most interesting change. And then just Infestors in general to see how they work now is going to be weird.